Older MMORPGs have 4 roles: tanker, damage, support, and control. Support is needed for boss fights. Debuffing is needed for boss fights. Buffing is needed for boss fights. You want a mix of everything, but having a support class there helps you out.
And welcome again to Blam Blam Truckers. I'm Buse, that's Bees, and we're going to get straight into it. So today, we're going to talk a little bit more about City of Heroes. And right above me, you can kind of see City of Heroes playing. I've got my Defender up. Do you know why I have my Defender up, dear viewer?
Why are you a Defender, Buse?
Because we're talking about support classes. I'll turn it over to you. Support classes. Why are they important?
Support classes.
I played every class in the game, Bees.
That's true. Almost every archetype, too. If you're watching this, you're probably an MMO player to begin with, or you've played D&D. You understand that there are the Trinity, is what they call it in WoW. They call it a Trinity because there's only 3 main class types in WoW. There's 3 roles: tank, support, and damage. That's it. Older MMORPGs have 4 roles: tanker, damage, support, which is usually healer, and control. And City of Heroes, as we've talked about in the past, is no exception to this. And we've gone over tanking, we've talked about blasting. Now we're going to talk a little bit about support. And support comes in a major variety of different flavors here in City of Heroes. So normally in most other games, support would just be healers with a little bit of buffing, with some variation on the theme. In classical EverQuest, shaman were major buffers with a decent amount of healing. Druids,
major buffer.
Druids did some buffing. They were kind of the balance of the 3 priestly classes. They did a decent, about the same amount of healing, some buffing, but they could actually do a nice DPS. And clerics were the kings of healing and had some of the best buffs in the game, but only 3 of them. And they were all defensive-based buffs. Both druids and shaman had offensive-based buffs as well as defensive-based buffs. City of Heroes takes support and takes it to an entirely new level. You can be a support class and actually do very little healing. You can be a support class or do no healing. The shield force fields in particular does 0 healing. That's kind of, sometimes that's 3. 0 healing. None, nada, zip, 0, zilch. It's all buffing, all defensive buffing, and it's an incredibly useful support class. It makes you much, much harder to get hit and much, much harder to take damage when you do get hit. We've also got, and that's just one example, the poison archetype has 1 single target healing spell, and the rest of it is all debuffing the enemy. So they're making it so the enemy can't hit you. Instead of you being able to hit the enemy can't hit you. And then when they do very little damage. If you get both a poison defender or support class and a force field support class, the enemy has almost 0 chance of hitting you. That's really, really good. Why do you need healing if you're not getting hit? So, and then there's blends. We've talked about this in the past. There's blends of different healing you can do, like thermal and the cold based. Both of those are and nature to a degree. Those 3 are all, they have a little bit of everything. But you've also got some pets in the healing tree, and you've also got control. It's not nearly as much control as a controller or a dominator would get, but there are entire archetypes like storm summoning that's based on keeping your opponents knocked down so they can't hurt you, and debuffing them but knocking them down. It is more offensive support class. It's also incredibly annoying when I'm tanking with a storm defender or corruptor or mastermind or controller. If they haven't slotted knock back to knock down into all of their powers, which is the set type called sudden acceleration, it drives me up a wall because as a tank, as we've talked about, you're trying to herd all the enemies together and get them into one tight group so the rest of the team can nuke them down with AoE or just take them down with AoE nice and quick, and knockback kind of ruins that entire experience. So does immobilization to a large degree if you time it wrong. But that's a control thing to talk about immobilization. There's a lot of different support archetypes. There's Corruptors, there's Defenders, there's Controllers, and there's Masterminds. People think Defenders are the best support class, and respectfully, I disagree. I'm sorry, if you're focusing solely on support and nothing else, and you're not going to use your secondaries for anything, then yeah, Defenders do get the biggest bonuses to their support abilities, and they are technically the best on paper support class. But if you want to use your secondaries, now that's time taken away from your support abilities, endurance taken away from your support abilities, and you have to find a balance there, which is not hard to do. I'm not saying Defenders don't make great support classes, because they do. I'm saying that it may not be the bonuses you get from being a Defender are endurance reduction, the more damage your team gets, and on not damage reduction, endurance reduction. And then when you're solo, you get endurance bonuses, so it's so much easier to actually solo, because Defenders were not initially built to be able to solo the same way other classes were. However, that's not a great bonus. It's not a bad bonus by any stretch of the imagination, especially when the chips are down, but you shine when the chips are down. A Corruptor, on the other hand, gets a damage bonus. The more, starting at 50%, when your enemy is down to 50% health, you start getting a damage bonus. When they get down to 10% health, you get 100% chance of getting a critical hit, which doubles the amount of damage you do. Corruptors are needed for taking down, they're not needed, but they're great at taking down endgame bosses for that final push. You died, Buse.
Yeah, I got surrounded by a bunch of clockwork stuff.
Yeah, I see that.
Is there a special event going on?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I am more focused on the podcast right now.
I am somewhat focused on it, which is another reason why I died, but anyways, keep going.
So Corruptors get that as a bonus. Controllers are focused more on control than support, but they get their entire secondaries as support secondary. So you can actually, while your main focus should be on making sure everything stays locked down or enough things stayed locked down, you can heal if that's the support class secondary that you choose, or debuff, or whatever it is you chose to do. There's a lot of variety there. We'll talk about that when we cover control. And then there is, of course, the Mastermind. And in my opinion, Masterminds make the best support class, even though they get the least amount of bonuses. And the reason why I think they make the best support class is Mastermind's primary, the pet aspect to it, is mostly stuff you do before the battle starts. You summon your pets, you buff your pets. That's most of your class. You get 3 attacks if you decide to take them, which you may want to, you may not. That's a personal choice. It's one of the great things we love about City of Heroes is it's your choice. There's so much variety, and you can build whatever you want because there's so much variety. So the reason why I recommend Masterminds as the ideal support class is because you've got your pets set up. In the heat of battle, you're not worried about your pets as much as you have time to focus on the other players in your group. And that's really what support does. It focuses on the other players in the group. So you come in with your pet class and you let your pets do their thing. You set them to attack, or if you've got ranged pets, you set a go-to location and they just stay there and attack whatever comes within range. And that's it for using your primary. The rest of the time is just devoted to making sure everybody's healthy, everything's buffed. If you really want to get into being a healer, especially, I highly recommend Masterminds because it gives you the time you need to focus on your healing. If you are buffing or debuffing. It gives you the time you need to focus on your debuffing. Not that you need to spend a lot of time on debuffing. It's usually only 1 to 3 attacks, 1 to 3 abilities, I should say. And its support can be a lot of fun. One of the things about an MMO that really makes it pop for me, like when I talk about an MMO I really enjoy, is knowing I'm needed in the group. Whatever I've chosen to play as is needed in the group. And it may not be every group you're in, but support is needed for boss fights. Debuffing is needed for boss fights. Buffing is needed for boss fights. For endgame content, which is the most challenging content, you're going to want a support class or 2 or 3 in your team, in your makeup. And whether you're doing a league or just a single group, you're going to want those support class in there, whether you are the support class or you're bringing the support class with you. I've got a poison defender that everybody wants me to play because not a lot of people on the reunion server are playing debuffers. That may have changed. I haven't done one of the server raids in a week, and I don't think I'm going to have time to do one this week, which is okay. It's about having fun. If real life comes before any game ever, any podcast, real life comes first. So hopefully I'll have some time to do one of the server raids. I do enjoy doing them, but whether you're talking about the Mothership raid or Hamadan or I don't know, Miss Liberty's Task Force where you can fight Lord Recluse, whatever it is you're doing, any of those endgame raids, or the eye trials, you're going to want support classes. Not just support classes. You want a mix of everything, but having a support class there helps you out. It makes you better. It's an important thing to have. The game is designed that the end boss fights need people debuffing them. Those end boss fights except for maybe even tankers, you need to get buffed up before you take most tankers. My stone tanker Kelly can actually she can take on Lord Recluse in Miss Liberty's Task Force at +4, and she can hold her own against him pretty much just fine, which is awesome. But her entire focus is on being able to do that. Most tankers can't do that, and frankly, it's not for everybody. It's not for most people.
Mm-hmm.
The way I like to play is not how most people like to play.
You covered most of it. I mean,
yeah.
I will say that my Defender, I haven't played any in a group at all. Have with my Mastermind, and I enjoy it, but I'm not as much of a support character with it as I am more of a just kind of DPS. But in other MMOs, I have played support characters. I mained a cleric for a while over on EQ. I was a paladin in WoW as a healer and such. So support classes are always needed. Like we're talking about City of Heroes, but as I like to do whenever we talk about City of Heroes, I like to talk about other games too. And
that
regardless
is true.
of what you're playing, support classes are needed, and you can have fun with them.
Oh yeah,
especially if you're not trying to solo. If you are a more social creature, like I know Bees is kind of more of a social creature when it comes to online gamings, then support classes are great.
There's solo games that are more fun. Most solo player games are more fun as far as gameplay goes than an MMO.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to solo in an MMO. The fun of playing online is playing with other people.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So yeah. What else? I cannot stress the importance of... Now, we didn't really cover pets much. And control... One of the greatest control powers is in the radiation or the nature support archetype. And it is a hold aura. It is an actual... I think it's a 15-foot. It might be an 8-foot aura. And I think it's 15 feet. And anything that comes within that aura around your character while you have the toggle up, you'll attempt to hold it with that power. And my controllers always take it. whether I just it is such a cheat, really. You boost that thing up with hold with one of the good hold sets, and it is just fantastic. You get it to +5. It is just amazing. And that's actually in a support archetype, because radiation is one of the best debuffing sets in the game, or well, it was the best debuffing set in early game. Frankly, poison is the best debuffing set, and debuffing is incredibly important. Incredibly important. For end game fights, you need those debuffs to do damage. It's something Reunion doesn't have enough of, is debuffers. So even if you just take something like the thermal set, which has a decent amount of healing in it and a couple of debuffs, those debuffs are going to help a lot. And the negative regen you need, the amount of negative regen you need just to be able to do damage to these giant monsters and bosses, you're going to need, that's a debuff. Negative regen is a major debuff. You're going to be looking for that in your group. I can't, as a tank, I can't bring that with me. As a blaster, there's only one blaster primary that does negative regen, and that's Beam Rifle. And that's actually got some really nice negative regen to it, but that's really all you're bringing as a blaster for debuffs. Some speed debuffs, but that's not going to help you hit, which is what we're talking about here. And then being able to boost up people's to hit, being able to boost up people's endurance recovery rate. Transfusion, we didn't even talk about kinetics at all, and that's one of the biggest sets here. Transfusion is the heal in the kinetics set, and it's one of the worst heals in the game. Most powerful area effect heals, that and the one from Dark, but the kinetic set doesn't do control, it doesn't do any shielding, it does a bit of debuffing, not a lot, but a bit. It's really good at end drain, which is important, but not, there's only one power that does significant end drain. Well, maybe 3. It does a little bit of control with a knockback aura, which you really want to swap to knockback to knockdown. And that just got changed in a patch last month. So it's not as effective as it used to be, but it's still very nice. But what it really does, the big power for the two big powers in kinetics that everybody wants, is fulcrum shift and transference. I think it's transference. The one,
I believe
and
you.
what fulcrum shift does is it drains a little bit of damage from all the enemies in an area. It's an area effect ability. And then from that bad guy you have targeted, from the mob you have targeted, it puts out a damage aura that stacks all of those damage bonuses onto anybody in range. So any of the good guys in range. So you can, if fulcrum shift changes the balance of power. It is the biggest damage buff in the game. It is overpowered and wonderful. That's why everybody wants one kinetics in their group. Just one. You don't need two. But because of that, and because Reunion is a relatively new server, we have tons of kinetics running around. It drives me up a wall. Because I need the debuffers. I have the kinetics. I need the debuffers. I need the healers. I need the buffers who go ahead and do like force fields and stuff, and the bonuses you get from thermal, and the defensive buffs, the strength buffs, the endurance recovery buffs. There's 3 actually. I forgot about speed boost. Speed boost boosts your endurance and your actual running speed out of the kinetics set, and then on top of that, you've got transference. Is transference? I think it's transference. That drains the endurance out of the mob and all the mobs in the area, and then radiates it out from the caster. So anybody nearby the caster gets a huge just boost of endurance, just straight up injection of endurance every time you use that power, and it's a big end drain on the bad guys and all the bad guys in the area. So yeah, kinetics is a game changer. And there's no other, I've never seen anything like it in any other MMORPG. Have you?
Not really, no.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It's a great set to have with you when you're fighting endgame bosses, when you're just doing regular content. Farms will say we need a kin. We need a kin. That's what they call them for kinetics. Kin, K-I-N. We need a kin for a farm, so you can go into a farm and just make a ton of XP and influence, which is the in-game cash. There's all sorts of different support roles that are crazy different from anything else you'll see in any other MMO. And it's worth looking into. It's worth checking out. They're a lot of fun. You're going to be wanted in a group. And I cannot stress enough how badly we need debuffers. You don't have to focus on it with like poison, but even having a thermal or an ice guy with us helps out a lot. And then just a little tip under Masterminds. If you are a robot mastermind, and this is only true for the robot, your beam attack weapons, every one of those lasers that you attack with has, if it lands, which most of the time it does a negative 200% regeneration debuff. So it reduces,
Nice.
yeah, that's huge. And it lasts for 30 seconds, and these can fire off every second. You can get one of them going, or so, roughly. And even if it's every 3 seconds, you're just stacking that negative regen buff on the bad guy. And that's a little known fact. So if you're building a mastermind to be, debuff focused or even just support focused, just knowing that, grab those 3 attacks and make sure that you've boosted their accuracy enough so that they're going to hit, and boom, go to town with them. On all the bosses, you're going to want to be shooting them with your robot attacks. No other mastermind archetype primary has that kind of a bonus. Some of them do have bonuses, but nothing as good as that. Is that a reason just to play robots? Maybe, but play something you like.
Yeah.
Always play something you enjoy.
And when it comes to masterminds, what? You have your choices of robots, ninjas, mercenaries, and
Animals, thugs, demons.
Like, you've got your choice, and I chose my soldier mercenary guys purely for aesthetic reasons. And with City of Heroes, that actually is a lot for a lot of people. Just purely for aesthetic reasons. Choosing various power sets or whatever. Or heck, even story reasons, because I like to have mini stories for most of the characters I create. This guy not so much, but on other ones I do, so.
Fair enough. Alright, that's all I've got.
If you enjoyed this video, and you enjoyed the two of us talking, we have more videos in our backlog, and more videos that are in my computer backlog to come. And we would really love for you to share this with your friends and or like-minded people. And if you personally enjoy it, we'd like you to hit that like button. It improves our engagement.
You've turned us into virtual mendicants.
Indeed.
Like, share, subscribe, and comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us how stupid we look. As long as you're commenting, we're happy.
Indeed. And I did put up a poll. If anyone wants to go to it, just what would you like to see more from us? But
it's not
that
May
requires. But all right, we will see you, truckers. Thank you again.